you go.
You
I
ready?
look like an old man.
All right, welcome to the Ripple Effect. Tell me what your name is.
Hey, I'm Jeff, anything but boring.
Jeff, anything but boring.
That's right.
Just wanted to ask you a few questions. Jeff, where are you from?
Originally Kansas City,
Yeah.
lived in Colorado since '95, moved here by choice,
Yeah,
lifestyle.
yeah. Tell me about where you're from and who you grew up with and your family.
Yeah, grew up
or-
in Kansas City, pretty wealthy, well-known family, and product of the Catholic school system, and big family, had 5 brothers, and it was Kansas City was good.
Yeah. What does your dad do?
My dad is retired and lives down in the Villages, Florida.
What did he do when you were growing up?
So my grandfather started the Jack Boying's appliance and TV business, and then my father took it over when I was in middle school.
What year about?
I would say that was probably in the mid-'60s.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so we were like the Fred Schmidt of Denver at one time. Everybody knew, and nobody made fun of my name until I moved to Denver. So anyway, yeah,
Okay.
so it was an affluent family and lifestyle, and I'm one of 6 boys, the only one to go to the Rockhurst High School and to go to college. And
You were?
what's that?
You're the only one to go to college?
I am.
Yeah.
Yep. Not sure why that is, but
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about your mom? Where's your mom? I mean,
My mom was I believe, a receptionist at the store, and my dad took a liking to her, and next thing you know, they were dating, and
gotcha.
I don't know how long they dated, but eventually they got married and had that big Catholic family.
Wow.
So,
What's life like for you today? Where do you live and what do you do and what are you married to or what's your life like
yeah,
today?
so I live in Littleton, Colorado, and Tina and I have been married since 1987. We have a good relationship. We have 3 children. They're all grown adults, and we've got 8 grandchildren.
Wow.
And the bulk of everyone is here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I was going to ask you to define yourself, what would you say that are 3 words that define you?
I would say that I'm a character, that I can be pretty serious at times, but I like to have fun. So I'm a character. I can be serious. I'm very, I guess, consistent
Yeah.
in how I think and how I perform.
What do you think people think of you?
I would say that most people think I'm a smart ass.
Yeah.
But people that I don't have that relationship with, I'd say they probably think I'm pretty good person, get along with, and pretty easygoing.
So do you believe that like what you think about yourself versus what other people think of you, do you think that those things align?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I enjoy
Good.
being a smart ass sometimes.
What did you think you were going to be when you were growing up? What did you want to be?
From the moment that a dirt bike shop opened up by my house when I was in early high school, all I wanted to be was a motocross racer.
Yeah.
And it happened. That's all I thought about, and that's all I did. And by the time I was 16, I got my pro license, and I was at the Jesuit high school with a van with hair down to here, and gone every weekend racing motocross.
Right on.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So is that still a passion of yours today?
It's a passion to ride
Yeah.
for enjoyment. So I've got a couple of bikes. I've got a KTM dirt bike and a BMW sport touring bike, and one of the reasons I moved to Colorado was enjoy lifestyle, and of course for me that was riding and skiing and camping and just weather, all around weather, and everything's just better here.
Right. What's your biggest fear?
My biggest fear right now, I'd have to say, is since we just lost one of our sons to suicide in November, we have another son that's pretty unstable right now, and my biggest fear is probably losing him.
Mm.
Yeah,
Is
we've
that
lost him physically, mentally. I mean, he's still in the state, but he's give or take homeless, and ironically, he called today, and Tina is she's just went to see him.
Your wife.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we have this schedule already, and so we're dividing and conquering there, and she's
Yeah.
going to check in on him, and but he's very smart. College, high school, prep school, very smart, very good grades, and everything. But he just got on the wrong side of the tracks,
No.
with people and drugs and whatnot.
Right.
So,
Have you had exposure to this kind of stuff before?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Where's that?
well, let me start from the beginning, I guess. I was married before to my high school sweetheart Terry, and in 1986, after being married 9 years, she developed colon cancer and passed. And Jessica was 5 years old, our daughter, and Justin, whom I just spoke of, was 6 months old. And so that was the first real tragedy of family death for me. And then,
Left alone as a single dad?
yeah, I was a single dad, but not for a real long time. I actually met my current wife. I knew her previous just as an acquaintance, and then ironically, we ended up running into each other and ended up dating and getting married. So, but yeah, losing Terry was really hard. 29 years old, high school sweethearts. We've known each other since we were 15, and so you can imagine losing somebody that you'd been totally close with for 15 years, half your life was very struggling.
Especially
challenge.
with two little ones running
Yeah.
around. I'm sure that was
Yeah.
incredibly difficult.
Yeah. I did get a little bit of a break. I was going to counseling at Catholic Charities in Kansas City, and the counselor hooked me up with a lady that was also in counseling, and she had a desire to babysit kids, and she wanted to open up a daycare in her home. And so I was her first customer, and she's a sweetheart. We're still good friends today. Chuck and Carolyn, they're in Kansas City. If you see this, hello. Thanks again. You guys are great. And so anyway, and I had an employer at the time that was very forgiving and gave me a lot of time off. And so anyway, started piecing things back together. Unfortunately, a month before Terry passed, one of my brothers committed suicide. And then about 3 years after that, my oldest brother, Jack, OD'd on heroin. And then subsequent to that, over the last 10 or 15 years after that, had a brother that succumbed to cocaine. He was a lifelong cocaine addict. And then I had two other brothers since that had passed, mostly due to alcohol. They did some drugs, but I think most of it was alcohol was their challenge. So, I lost my first wife, and then I lost 5 brothers, and yeah, that was, and then with John here this last November, it's been quite a challenge.
How is it that you came from a family of 6 brothers with that kind of drug addiction and those kinds of things going on?
Sure.
How is it that you were able to come through that and not get involved? And I mean, you've apparently become a fairly successful guy in your life. And how is that happened?
I've been asked that many times, starting with way back when we were in high school and my parents put us in the shrink's office, trying to figure out how to corral these 6 boys. And I can only explain it this way. I can't take responsibility for the way I'm basically wired. That's God, right? I think we all are wired to some degree how we are. I think another third is the environment. We all grew in the same environment, and the other third is choice. But I can tell you, I think what happened to me was when the motorcycle shop opened up, and I just fell in love with it. And We'd go down there and hang out after school and learn about these cool things, dirt bikes, and it just took me by storm, and that's just all I wanted. And so it was something very constructive. Whereas by this time, my oldest brother and several of my brothers were getting into drugs and alcohol, and they didn't really have something constructive to hold on to. Some of them started, but for whatever reason, they just didn't stick. And so that's the only thing I can tell you is partially the way I'm wired, partially the environment I grew up in, and the choices I made in that environment. I guess maybe I had a little more of a conscious, deep down the way I was wired.
Yeah. What kind of relationship did you have with your brothers before as they were going through what they were going through? Because I can only imagine with that kind of, addiction and, those kind of issues, there was a lot of horrible stories that came along with that. But, what kind of relationship did you end up having with your brothers as you got older and they became adults? And
I had always had a pretty good relationship with them. I was gone a lot because I wasn't around the neighborhood every weekend. I was literally, in a van driving to a racetrack somewhere most weekends,
right.
at least, 9 months out of the year. In the wintertime, you're more stagnant in Kansas City. But and then after high school, I moved to Oklahoma for a summer to race, and then came back to Kansas City, and then Terry and I got married a few years later, and our honeymoon consisted of driving to Southern California. My coach at the time had everything lined up in SoCal, and we literally loaded everything up in a van that we owned, including a dirt bike, and got married and drove to California.
Wow.
And so I was gone a lot of the time. So to answer that question, I had a good relationship with my brothers, but I was living, I was doing my thing. Yeah.
Mm. So, what has been going on in your life over the course of the last, you alluded and mentioned Johnny just a minute ago in regards to what's gone on with him. So talk about what current day, what's gone on in your life in the last couple of years.
Yeah. So, I'll start off with Jessica, our daughter. She's a sweetheart, and her and her husband Aaron and their 3 kids live here in Golden, not far from us, and they're great. They're very busy and doing the routine, raising the family, and she's a stay-at-home mom, and so that's really solid. Justin, we've had our challenges with for the last several years. He's been really challenged with his lifestyle and financially and whatnot. So we finally, over the course of about the last year, finally said enough and realized that we've probably enabled him too much by coming to his rescue, whether it be physically or financially. And we
Rescue
finally
from what?
just rescuing him from being homeless, being broke all the time. Yeah.
Addiction?
Not really addiction, because he never really let on about the drug use. He covered it up pretty good.
Yeah.
But in the last couple of years, though, that became a little more apparent, and so it reached a point where we just said, we can't enable this anymore, and it's tough. I mean, when our son John was in high school, he got into drugs as well, and he had 6 months to go to finish high school, and I went out and bought a brand new Scion car to give him, with the carrot that he would spend the last 5 months and finish high school. And he turned me down, and he was doing a lot of blow and a lot of drinking, and dropped out of school, and I had to do the tough love thing. I had to kick him out. And that really makes you wonder today, because of what happened. But anyway, he that's definitely on our mind, and Justin's on our mind, because we can't control it. right? You have to let your kids go. At the same time, they're still very much a part of you and always will be. And it's hard,
Yeah.
right, to deal with that.
Can you tell us a little bit more about Johnny and what's gone on with him over the last couple of years, or what's happened with him, and expand on that a little
Yeah,
bit?
he unfortunately, in the high school days, he was pretty wild and had a lot of relationships with women. And um, unfortunately, he had three babies with three different baby mamas. And, had his first kid. I think Caden was, I think John was 18 when he had Caden. And, actually, I was depressed back then because I'm a very deep thinker and I saw the handwriting on the road because, you're not able to support yourself, and so you're not really responsible. You're independent, but you're not responsible and you're not self-supportive. And that was something I'd always drilled into the kids all these years. And unfortunately, he, went astray that way. So I think economically that put a tremendous weight on him. And then he wasn't the school kind of person, so we got him into the millwright union through a friend of ours. And he became a millwright and did his apprenticeship over 5 years and started out pretty good. But I think the union personality, if you will, really got under his skin because a lot of guys don't walk the walk. They don't do good work. They do a lot of shitty things, to be honest with you. And it got to be really challenging for him politically and on the job and getting work and whatnot. So he got sort of turned off by all that. And, you can imagine the courts, after him for child support, as they should. And, just all that pressure. And then we learned, after he committed suicide, that he had basically told us that he had been depressed in seventh grade. And Tina and I still really challenge ourselves with that because he lived in a great area and everything. And, our household was good. Did we make mistakes parenting? Sure, but I think everyone does. But I was really hard on Justin. Justin was hard from 2 on up, and Jessica and Justin were from my first marriage, and John was from Tina and I's marriage, and so I always promised myself after John was born that I would back off and not be such a hard ass, as a parent. Let Tina have her most of the say in how things were done. And, not that she did anything wrong. It's just that, John just, I don't know. He was a good kid when he was young, but he just got really wild when he was in high school. And honestly, I think he was working at Jiffy Lube, and I think some older guys pulled him aside, and next thing you know, the cocaine came out, and that was it. So, yeah.
So as you look back at just the kids and what's gone on with the kids, is there something in particular that you wish you could have done differently, or guilt that you're carrying, or any thoughts around that?
Yeah, that's a really good question and something I struggle with all the time, especially right after, John committed suicide. You're like, you can't help but think about the coulda, shoulda, wouldas. And like I said, sure, you've made mistakes, but you also did a lot of good things. And, they grew up in good households. So what would I do over again? We moved out here for lifestyle, and I really love it. And I ride a lot, motorcycles, and I still do. And, Tina's told me over the years that, maybe had I spent more time home and not so much riding, maybe I would have been more of an influential factor. So I've always wrestled with that a little bit. Outside of that, we started down the religious path. Tina and I got married in the Catholic Church, mostly from my parents, out of respect to my parents. And when we moved here to Colorado, we were still practicing in the Catholic faith to some degree, but it was weaning. Tina grew up really not much religion. I think it was maybe Baptist, but it really wasn't an influence in her life. And um, I I suppose maybe we could have done something beyond the catechisms and things like that they were influenced with. But who's to say? I don't know. I don't know.
So do you think that you've had differences in dealing with your brother's death versus the death of your son and what's going on with Justin and your fears around what's going to happen with him? Do you feel like that, maybe what's going on within your own closer family has pushed you to think differently about, I don't know, spirituality or God, or is that something that you've thought about?
Yeah. So a couple questions there. So naturally, when I lost Terry, that was a huge blow. Back then, I can remember, telling myself that, I don't even own the shirt on my back. We all live and we have possessions, and we drive cars or whatever, and you think these things are yours, but I'm here to tell you, you don't own anything. I don't care what you think, right? You may have control over things and you may use things, but at the end of the day, you really don't own anything. And that was really something that hit me back then. And then through the years, with losing the brothers, yeah, it was hard. Um, but, I realized way back when Terry died, and remember, my other brother had just committed suicide 30 days prior. Um, I think if anybody had a reason to look in the mirror and ask themselves if they, wanted to have a purpose to live, but, I certainly had that condition faced. And, I told myself, I've got two young kids, to support and raise. And so that was my reason, to move on and not fall off the face of the earth, right? And so that was for me then. As far as all the brothers, throughout, um, it was hard, but I got to be honest with you. For some reason, it just you sort of become numb to it to some degree, and and then here we come back to 5 months ago when John passed, and we knew he was in trouble last summer, and we had actually put him into suicide watch back last May, and we knew he was in trouble. We didn't know how much trouble he was in, and then we did the suicide watch, and then he stopped drinking, and his current girlfriend, fiance at the time, Katie, they got married the following month, and I got him into yoga, got him practicing a little bit, and I thought that, and we got him some work outside of the union to hold him over, and so we thought that was coming along reasonable, um, only to find out, with some video he left us that he'd actually planned his death, and so that's still really hard. You don't know whether to love him or be mad at him sometimes.
Right.
So.
Where's Tina tonight?
Tina is. We just got a call from Justin, and we don't have much contact with him. It's pretty much whenever he wants to call, and so she's over visiting him for the first time in months. Do a gut check with him, and then. So you asked me about where does this lead me to spirituality, and I couldn't sleep really for 3 weeks after John died. I really wrestled with that topic, and 3 weeks about I came to the conclusion at that time that I absolutely believe in God, the Creator, but I had almost an epiphany that labeling and judgment are taking a back seat. I'm turning all of that off because it just gave me peace. And for the first time in 3 weeks, I was able to sleep.
Wow.
And so that was very powerful for me. And today, I'm still searching. I do lots of reading, lots of podcasts. I'm studying a lot of things in yoga that I've been a practicer for about 15 years, mostly physical. So I'm looking more at the spiritual aspects of yoga. Um, and so you get a lot of contradictions in your head about where do you really want to land on this topic of spirituality? Because I think at the end of the day, it really does become an individual choice. Um, I have relatives that are atheists, different religions, Jehovah, um, Catholics, um, and I've interviewed people. I get their perspectives, but at the end of the day, what gives me peace right now is being able to try to really turn judgment off and labeling. And so, what I try to do, I'm not very good at it, but I try to surrender more. I try to be more spontaneous. I'm a planner. Okay. And so try to be more humble, try to live more gratitude. The yoga practice tries to help me stay more grounded with being present.
Yeah.
Like I said, I read books on the subject. I follow podcasts and various people on those. And so that's where I'm at. But life purpose forward, I don't know. I'm really, really asking myself that next. And I'm sure that goes hand in hand with the spirituality. And then just the immediate still dealing with, what's happened. Because it's only been 5 months. And, when you lose a child, that's, it's really hard. And my grief bursts are tapering off about once a week. I get a grief burst. Songs trigger my emotions a lot, and I actually keep a list. I have a song for each one of my brothers, and now a song for John, and that I just think about, and I think about them, and I end up tying a song to them just for memory's sake.
Oh.
And yeah, so for whatever reason, certain songs, trigger my thought process and my emotions a lot. So.
What's your song for you?
Mine is an Eagles song called "The New Kid in Town."
What about John? What's John's song?
I don't know the exact song, but it is by Pink Floyd, and might have been Time. I can't remember. I'd have to go look it up. But the last couple of years, I love Pink Floyd, and at Red Rocks, they've had a Brit Floyd tribute band every year, and I've not missed a year until COVID. And last couple of years, John and Katie would go with me, and so naturally, I had to pick a Pink Floyd song for him. So, yeah.
Is there anything else on your mind in regards to some of the things that we're talking about that you would like to talk about?
Yeah, I got a few things. One thing that's been sort of interesting is I've noticed that most friends, not all, but a lot of friends, I guess they really don't know what to say to you, and that's understandable. I mean, most people don't lose a child, before they pass. So, but I think most people don't know what to say, so they don't say anything. They're vacant.
Right.
They're no-shows, right? Now, that's not entirely true. Early on, I've got some really good close friends that reached out and, have been very, supportive, early on. But, one of the things I think about after losing John is how quick the world is to forget about people and events. And,
Wow.
and so I think, friends, if you're listening, watching this, give me a shout. Let's go hang. I'm okay with it. Bill, you've been great for that, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And let me see, what else?
Can I ask you real quick?
You bet.
Well, as you were saying that, I resonated entirely because I obviously we do know each other, but not well. But that I felt empty, and I didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
What would you? Do you have some guidance there? I mean, what would you like to be asked about, and what feels safe, and how do you um, invite that in a way that for somebody that wouldn't know how to ask it?
Yeah.
Like how.
I think just if that's you and that's what you're thinking, just put your brave hat on and reach out.
Just
Just
say
say
hey.
hi.
Just make sure you're doing all right. Say hello.
Spend time.
Yeah.
If you're local,
Yeah.
hey, let's get together. Let's do something.
Yeah.
But if you're remote, pick up the phone.
That's
Whatever.
fascinating. That's what I was thinking about. Was who are your connections right now? Like the people that. What's your support mechanism? Who are the people that you feel the most supported by right now?
Yeah, that's a tough one with COVID, right?
Yeah.
Because early on, we reached out to a few online support groups that deal with parents that lose children by suicide, like Three Hopeful Hearts up in Fort Collins. I've got some friends that are associated with them, and we did some online counseling with them, and they sent a care package, and it was fantastic. I'm more of an external communicator than Tina is, and so it was hard for her to sit on some of these online Zoom calls, but I pushed through because I felt that it was part of the path of recovery. But it didn't stick. I don't know. It's hard to find counseling in this day and age with COVID and all the things that have happened to people. And for me personally, I'm challenged to find a counselor that would have enough experience to give me some benefit over everything I've dealt with.
Yeah.
Because I don't think a lot of people have gone through the extremes that I've gone through. So online is mixed, and trying to find something face to face is really challenging. And I'm in the spiritual purpose search, and so I'm purposely not trying to attach myself to any one religion for counseling, because as I said earlier, I've done a few interviews with a few people, and some people are very caring and not pushy, and others are very opinionated, and I know sort of where those conversations are going to end up. So I'm just sort of doing my own thing there, I guess.
So thank goodness for Bill McMillan and people like him, right?
Yeah,
I don't know about
Billy.
that. Is there something else on there that you were thinking about, Jeff, that you
Yeah.
would like to talk about?
Not really. I think I've covered everything. I think my head's on straight. I'm worried about Tina. John was her only biological son, and she's not an external communicator. She doesn't share her thoughts easily. So I worry about getting her into some counseling and getting someone to really latch on to. But I got to say, she's been a trooper too, because she's held up a lot better than I thought she would. She lost her grandmother in October, a month before John passed, and I could not go to her service in Kansas City due to some surgery recovery, and so John and Katie, John's wife, actually made the road trip with Tina to Kansas City, and that's really hard on her too, because that was a hard time. Someone she was so close to. We were all close to her, and then for John to do what he did. John, if you're listening to this, we love you, and we know you were challenged, but we still don't understand completely why you did what you did. I wish perhaps we'd have understood your pain maybe better than we did. We knew you were challenged, but Maybe we didn't know to what extent and what to do about it, right? Like, for example, I volunteer at a motorrelief.org. It's a couple out of Evergreen, Colorado that run this nonprofit for vets and first responders that have PTSD. And what they do is they take them on week-long motorcycle rides in Colorado or Arizona, depending on the geo. And if they're in Colorado, they come back. We throw a barbecue for them because I make the best barbecue in Colorado. Anyway, but that organization's been really insightful for us and something that we wanted to contribute to and support. And they do a lot of counseling with the guys and the ladies when they come in through in the ladies group. And it's intended to give them an outlet for some relief and some fun, but also give them some camaraderie and to share their stories and to heal and hopefully survive, right? Because there's a high suicide rate. So, and I remember talking to John about wanting to talk about his problems. Unfortunately, he didn't want to be reminded of his problems. So it's not like I could just pick up the phone or when he comes over, sit down out here and say, hey, how's it going, blah, 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 right? And he's, like Tina, is not one to really air his thoughts, so he didn't initiate conversation. So I guess I would say to anyone else watching this that if you see somebody in that condition that you care about, do your homework on your methods on how to approach, which I think in a nutshell, if I was to sum it up, it really means don't talk like I do, just listen, right? Be a shoulder, listen, and just be there, right? And go out of your way to go the extra mile. If you have an opportunity to be face-to-face as opposed to over the phone or text, right? It's always best to be as close to the person as you can, I think. So, yeah.
Can't thank you enough for doing this, Jeff. Is there something that we can do for you? Is there something that we can do to help in regards to anything that you're going through? And
I think this
okay.
is a great opportunity that you've provided because it's in a small way it's healing, right, for me, and hopefully for others that will see this, right? Because as we all know, Ryan and Bill, if you get involved with causes, right, it really, just like forgiveness, right? You don't practice forgiveness for them. You ultimately practice it for yourself, right? Well, being involved and helping others is the same principle, I think. So this is it. You're doing it. I'm glad to be a part of it. Thanks.
Well, thanks for doing this, Jeff. It's,
right.
I think, going to carry a powerful message, and we'll see where it goes.
All right.
Thanks, man.